guys, before we get started, you know what it is. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at LaunchpadPod, on our website, launchpadpod.com. Check us out on our YouTube. You see our handsome faces. We got like quadruple the handsome today. We're doing, we got some guests, and I'm super excited to talk to them about their new comic book project. So hit us up on that social media, hit subscribe, tell your friends about us. As we go into the holidays, there's nothing better than traveling with the fine podcast ringing in your ears so you drown out all the babies screaming on the plane. And what better podcast to listen to than the Launchpad Podcast? So let's get on with the show.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
All right, welcome to the Launchpad Podcast. I'm Aaron.
Matt.
Matt, we have guests today. We've had a bunch of guests lately.
I was just gonna say,
it's been a run.
It's been fun. I like, we like to do both, right? We like to just fuck around with you and I, but also we like to have cool people on the Launchpad talk about some fun stuff. And today is going to be a good one. Rumi, who do we have today?
We have David Schrader and Clay Adams. They are the brilliant minds behind a bunch of comic books, but specifically, you might know them. We've had them on the show before to talk about Nightmare Theater, and they're here to plug Nightmare Theater 2. Oh, that is my favorite variant cover there. The Nightmare Theater cover from book 1. It is so cool. Guys, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us. We're doing great.
Always good to be here.
David, you are this is your 4th time on our show, if I've counted correctly, and you are the guest we've had on most.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yes, it is true.
Really?
You are like the Tom Hanks to our SNL.
Yeah, what does he win then?
I'm
the
almost
Four-Timers Club.
I was ready to say I'm going to be in the Five-Timers Club next time. I can't wait. Like I get a jacket and we hang out in the room. It's awesome. Yeah,
I can't believe
get
that jacket ready.
So was it Baby Badass? Was I on originally for Baby Badass?
Yeah, you came on for Baby Badass when we were just a fledgling podcast. Yeah,
and Henchman. Did I come on with Peter?
And yep. And
that's what did it.
And then you've been on with Baby Badass a couple times, Henchman, and then Nightmare Theater 1, and now Nightmare Theater 2, and it's just been what an honor to have such a repeat guest.
The honor is all mine, and I can't believe it speaks really highly of your show that someone of my caliber is on so often. I was going to say the opposite, but I was like, "Why? I'm going to be positive about this."
Well, I mean, it's great. You do cool stuff, man. And again, we don't normally plug stuff. We're not a pluggy show, and we only plug stuff that we think is funny or we like or that sends us cool things. No,
you got to send us a jacket. Although, Rumi, I remember like at the beginning when we first started the show, we specifically had friends who were like, "Hey, can I come on and talk about this? Hey, can I come on and talk about this?" And you and I were like, let's think about this. We don't want to be shilling shit. If it's something cool that we are legitimately interested in, we'll talk about it, and then we don't mind plugging it as fans of that thing. And I think I feel like we've kept true to that, which I love. And Dave, it speaks a lot to the stuff that you do, because not that Aaron and I are any sort of fucking critics to be reckoned with, but the fact that you keep doing different things,
you're tastemakers. You're tastemakers.
I'm wearing a Chopping Mall shirt right now.
I'm wearing Chopping Mall boxer shorts. I'll show you those in a second.
Oh my God.
But Dave, you didn't just come alone today. Who did you bring with you?
Clay Adams is down here from Fried Comics. He's a good friend of mine. He can tell you more about himself.
What's up, gentlemen?
Clay, thank you for coming,
and this
man.
is, I think, number 2 for Clay, but I remember having a blast last time talking about Nightmare Theater.
Yeah, we had a great chat last time. That was fun. We won't try to compete with that. This is a whole different experience,
which is good, because I was going to say you were funny if I remember correctly, so you better have brought it today.
I'm going to be the opposite. I'm going to be very dramatic. It's going to be a downer. I'm going to cry a few times.
Well, he is classically trained. He's a classically trained actor.
It's true. It's true. I'm going to start speaking in an iambic pentameter. It's going to be phenomenal.
Rumi, I feel like you'd be into that, right?
'Twas brilling in the slithy toes to gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the barrel groves and the mum rafts out grabe.
Now there's a bunch of people like, oh, I liked it better when they talked about dad shit.
You guys, I was going to say, you can name this episode "Beards and Headphones."
Well, so you
A lot
guys,
of that going on.
you guys have come pimping Nightmare Theater 2, Nightmare Theater 1. What a smash hit! An awesome,
That's the book.
awesome book. This thing was a massive comic book. Like I said, what was it, 170 pages or so?
270.
270.
272 officially here in the back.
That's the first Nightmare
Gotta
Theater.
believe it if they said
Over
it.
35 different artists, creators, writers coming with stories. And it harkens back to that era that I love so much of like EC Comics, Tales from the Crypt, Eerie Comics, Shock Comics, like just horror comics at their best, anthology series. And it went so well that you guys are coming back with a sequel. So tell us about the sequel. Tell us. Well, first I have a question, then you can tell us more about it. Are you bringing back the awesome hosts from the first one? You had like the welder and like Shelley Poe.
Shelley Poe Stoker.
Shelley Poe Stoker, which what with the three names right there. What a great reference. And then what was the little ring girl with the teddy bear?
Eerie Aaron.
Eerie Aaron. I like that so much. They were so fun. Are they back?
They are back.
All right.
Back and better than ever, baby.
Yeah, Sarah Maliski, who played Shelley Poe Stoker in our videos, she did another one, and she'll be back in the book. The same kind of framework is involved with this one as well. It's like a continuation. It's this film festival of souls that never ends. It'll just keep going.
Amazing. So how many stories do you have in this one popping up?
20 this time. We pared it down a little bit because 272, the big joke we used to make was that you could actually kill somebody with this book. And it really was big and unwieldy. Awesome book. But just for our sanity. So we didn't actually want to kill someone. We decided it was better to sort of pare it down, pare it back, and just stick with 20 teams this go around.
I think that's how the second book should have opened, right?
Right. Yes, you can maim someone with this book. You probably can't kill them.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But it's also, look, the first book, it was our first time out. You know, we wanted to do something with Bloodline Comics, and we thought an anthology makes sense. Let's do that. So we asked a bunch of people, whether it's David Pepos, Charlie Stickney, Stephen Prince, like, you know, people we know, and didn't know that well, but we kind of met on the circuit, like Caden Phoenix, and in this issue we have Melissa White. Everyone said yes the first time around, so the book just kind of like it got away from us a little bit in a good way. But yeah, it's a lot editorially to handle when it's that big and there's a lot of moving parts. So we just wanted to slim it down a little, and it's a leaner, meaner sequel.
But keep the quality. It's all quality.
Absolutely. It's all quality.
Absolutely. It was an embarrassment of riches in that first volume.
Right.
And that's
Is that
the thing.
on the
Like,
back? I feel like that should be on the back cover.
I don't think you're allowed to write your own log lines.
We'll take some quotes from you guys, though. So,
So please, somebody say that. During the course.
Yeah,
of the
but I'm going to
podcast,
forget half of it, so I'll be like, it was an embarrassment of some sort.
it's an embarrassment.
Just an embarrassment. Yeah.
That sounds like some of the reviews from my first film. It's like porn without the sex. Like, great.
Well, you guys are talking about how you made this giant tome the first time. Then you learned a little bit about like, okay, let's keep, within certain boundaries. Now you have volume 2 coming out and you have it, it's a little bit more streamlined. What are some other things that you guys learned with the first volume that you're now putting into practice with the second one, whether it's changes that you made or ways you're going to handle things? What are some of the differences between volume 1 and volume 2 because of the experiences you guys had with the first one?
I think that's probably the biggest change. I mean, like we sort of approach this with like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, Sure. And in the grand, I guess, tradition of horror movies, right? Because this is a love letter to horror movies. We kind of wanted to present more of the same, but just do it just as well, if not better. And I think we really accomplished that. I mean, we actually kind of started off thinking that like we might have trouble getting people this time because like Dave said, everybody said yes last time. And so we thought, well, maybe we'll just do like a magazine, like it'll be 60 pages. And it was kind of the same situation. Like we reached out to a bunch of people said yes. And suddenly we were like, oh, this is like a 125 pages. I think it's actually going to be like 160 pages when all is said and done. Right. So it does keep growing like a Frankenstein's monster, but we really learned, like, you know, treat the backers well, create an awesome product, a beautiful looking book, and that's really what it's about. And yeah, we're just stoked to be back for more.
That's awesome. I have a question about as your roles of sort of producing this and being the editors for this, and are you putting a story in as well?
Yeah, we did. In the first book, we had a story called Nightmare with a K. It was like a theme park, like animatronics that had killed these kids and you run amok. And it's this fun story that Ismail Canales did the art for. And we also did the origin stories of each character. So Erie Aaron had her story, Clay wrote. I wrote the Shelley Poe Stoker story, which was like, you know, she has the legs of the Can-Can killer and, you know, the reanimated lungs of Bram Stoker and, you know, the heart of Edgar Allan Poe, and kind of like she's a Frankenstein monster, basically. And that's her backstory. So we had those stories, we had our own stories, and we have them in this one as well. I'm doing a Carmilla Comes Again story. So I'm doing like a reintroduction of Carmilla, and Clay is doing a what's your story, Clay, called The Wall of Sleep?
It's called Beyond the Wall of Sleep. It's a Lovecraft adaptation. And that, like, if you want to go back to that question about like, what do we learn? One of the things that I almost regret, not regret, but like that I wanted to make sure I got into this book was a Lovecraft adaptation, because Lovecraft is huge right now. People on Kickstarter seem to have an insatiable appetite for anything Lovecraft. And so we had kind of we had a story by a guy named Gary Scott Beatty, and he's in volume 2 also, who does like Lovecraftian style horror, but we didn't have an actual adaptation. So I was like, you know what? I want to do something that's like in the tradition of the horror movies, where we sort of basically take the title and some characters and the general idea, but tell a brand new story with it. And just kind of incorporating elements of all these different Lovecraft stories from the dream cycle. And so it's called Beyond the Wall of Sleep.
That sounds awesome.
And one of our variant covers is Brian Silverback's did like a Cthulhu
Dreams.
Cover. It's really cool. Yeah. So there's a variation in our covers this time around. Again, we have a Emmanuel Taglietti cover that we're pushing hard because it's pretty cool. So yeah, there's like there's something vampires for everybody. Yeah, that's the Carmilla. That's the Carmilla cover.
So here's a question about being the editors and producers. How do you get people to do a variety? Because if you just like let people pick their own thing, do you have input? Otherwise, it'd be like 30 stories about buxom vampires. Like, how do you keep the variety to other buxom monsters?
Buxy the vampire is a really interesting idea for
which I'm writing that down.
Yeah, right now. Please trademark Buxy the vampire.
Yeah, done. I just paid the lawyer. We're good.
But do you let people pick their own stories, or do you help develop it so your book has a lot of variety?
We definitely make sure that there's variety in the book. So like basically we would approach people and say like, hey, do you have anything like it might be first come, first served, right? Like if okay. I know we had to turn down one pitch because somebody had already pitched us a similar story, you know? Mm-hmm. And so like there is some active cultivating of the stories there, because we definitely don't want overlap. Like we want to make sure that we're presenting like a broad variety of horror, something for everybody, a comedy tonight. But it's yeah, like we definitely had to cultivate those things, but then for the most part, like we let people run with it. Like once we knew there was an overlap, we weren't being like super active with all the stories. Like there were one or two that like we felt like might need a little more editing and tightening. But for the most part, it's like, 90% of it is casting, right? Like you just cast the right people and let them do their thing.
Yeah.
And to further that first point, like you just get the little short pitches. So if we're getting those, we kind of know what conflicts there may be already. So if someone has 2 or 3 ideas and there's one idea that's the same, and like Clay said, if someone else was first, then like, well, how about your other one? So that way you're able to shape it before people have full-fledged stories, and it's just kind of early in the process.
Very cool.
What's the gestation time from like you two guys, Dave and Clay, you guys get together and are like, all right, let's do a volume 2. Let's really do it. Once you give each other the green light for that and you start reaching out to people, how long from that till print?
When did we start coming up with this? Because we talked about the first volume for a long time before
probably 2 years. We kind of like talked about it and like, yeah, it'd be cool doing an anthology.
Kicking it around, kind of.
And then you start to approach people like, so I think that first book takes a little longer because you're laying the groundwork.
Right.
Second book, and Clay said he was like, let's do like a magazine, a Nightmare Theater annual, and, make it shorter, tighter. And what we may do in the future, I don't want to like set it in stone, but it's kind of a lot of work. And as you know, making comics is so profitable and you make so much money, and it's so worth all the time you put in. That maybe every other year or something, but we wanted to follow up because we're trying to build the brand as it is for Nightmare Theater.
Yeah, we got kind of a late start on this one because fulfillment was so, I had never dealt with having, 1,200 books dropped on my driveway before. So the fulfillment was kind of a beast. It took a few months to get out all of the backer copies, all of the contributor copies. But then once that was done and I only have a few boxes in my closet. Once that was done, I started to have that feeling of like, oh, you know what? People are getting their books now and they're going to see how awesome this thing is. So let's strike while the iron is hot and put together this next one. And yeah, so the original idea was to do something a little bit smaller, but Dave and I are gluttons for punishment, and we let it get out of control again.
I also have never dealt with Clay getting 1,200 books dropped in his driveway, so that was hard for me.
It was very tough for you, Dave.
Yeah, it was. But to hear about it, I was like, that sounds rough.
I like the idea.
Clay,
I'm imagining Dave was like, all right, so I'll put the website together. You take care of all the distribution.
Actually, okay, I think cool. I told him, I think it's more like you put the website together and do the distribution. So Clay, I want to give him credit. None of this, trust me, none of this is possible without Clay. I do what I can. And I have a newer family life going on where it's kind of chaotic. And he's probably more organized than me, but Clay is indispensable from beginning to end, especially with the book editorially, but the Kickstarter campaign itself, like he's very hands-on. So I give him tons of credit for the success of this. And, for all the other books that he does a great job.
Dave is being very humble. Dave, I think for the most part, you were responsible for like 90% of the contributors in volume 1. I mean, you were really like the driving force in terms of like going out and actively scouting out talent. So give yourself some credit, my friend.
Okay. Do you guys enjoy this? Do your listeners enjoy this love fest going on?
Well, I was about to do the same thing. I was about to compare me and Rumi to you guys. Okay. And I was like, no one gives a shit about us.
Let's hear you guys talk about each other like in such glowing terms.
I was going to say, you guys need to ask for raises.
Right? Rumi does all the work and I'm the face. So like I bring in all the ladies and Rumi gets all the ladies their ear candy.
So I'm sorry. Why do you call him Rumi? Did I miss that? Like, what's the...
Dude, there's like probably thousands of people listening right now that think the same thing.
Okay.
100 years ago, Aaron and I lived together in Pasadena, right?
Okay.
Yep. We lived together for like, I don't know, 2 years or something. And during that time, we called each other Rumi. And then just continued to call each other Rumi. Our wives call each other Rumi.
Yeah, it's a mutual like name. It's a mutual nickname.
That is very sweet. That's very sweet.
And the reason this is the Launchpad podcast is because when we room together, like our house needs a nickname because we're the party pad. Everybody
Rumi said that. Rumi was like, my friends have this place called the Oasis, and I want to have and I was like, we're only getting a nickname if it's cool.
Yeah. And the Launchpad was as cool as it got.
Because there was a movie called The Ice Cream Man, which stars Clint Howard as a killer ice cream man. And the
awesome.
it's not as
Awesome
awesome
in a
as
good
you
way.
want it to
Okay,
be.
I got you.
But it's funny to watch. But there's three kids that are like the protagonists that are trying to like figure out the mystery and stop the Ice Cream Man, because it's almost a kids movie. But these guys, they call themselves the Rocketeers, and they have this handshake that they clap hands and go up, and they go. So we just essentially stole the gimmick of three little kids in a terrible horror movie.
Clint Howard movie, people.
Yeah. So we were like, all right, our place is we're going to be called the Rocketeers, and where would they be? And we decided they would be at the launch pad. That was our apartment. And man, how many hot ladies marched in and out of that pad, Rudy? 0? -1?
I mean,
And
our
now
wives
you,
visited.
and now
eventually.
you know the rest of the story. The house I was in, like in the 90s, when I was, still in my 20s out here, it was nicknamed the House of Woe, because me and my roommate, I guess, like we were just kind of like the Charlie Browns, like, man, life is miserable and it's tough, and this house was just falling apart. It was just this awful house in Burbank that was like barely held up. Hervey Village used to live in the back. There was like all these stories about it, but there was no air conditioning for the longest time. So you just sit there and sweat, and so the House of Woe. And we had a couch that I had gotten from my aunt and uncle that, I think it was new in like 1972. So this is in the 90s. And like, we called it Pangea because there's this huge sectional, and it would kind of drift, like parts of it would drift all the time. So, that was the name of the couch. Like, you had names for everything back then. When you're in your 20s, like you just don't, there's just nothing else to talk
You have
about.
no life experience. Just name everything.
Just name everything. So there you go, Rumi.
Rumi and I used to write limericks. After we saw Leprechaun 3, we got into this like contest/game where we would write limericks making fun of each other and leave them around the house. Like actually write them and just leave them posted around the house. And then we'd respond also in limericks.
See, that's great. And that's the kind of stuff no one gets to see. It's like a little inside.
Like Rumi had a long-term girlfriend, though. I could have been out trying to get a girlfriend, but instead I was like, "This is going to
let me write poetry to this my roommate."
What rhymes with schlong?
I'm like, well, we also had booby traps in our house. Pepe the Baño clown, which was a marionette clown that somebody brought Matt from Mexico, and we had it rigged to the bathroom door. So if a guest came to our house and opened the door, it would go poing. Like,
see, that's awesome. That's great.
It was. You think it's awesome, but like, what bearing did that have on my life now? Like, am I any further ahead? I guess I am. I think, yeah.
Well, you'll always have that marionette story.
Well,
I still have Pepe. Well, one of us has Pepe. I don't know if I gave him to you or if I have him, but
I think
he never got thrown away.
He became Pepe the White Elephant gift that keeps coming back and forth.
Our house had this like little door in the ceiling that we never went in, and it was kind of like sealed off. And so one night, my roommate and our other friends we're all hanging out, and they were probably stoned or at least drunk and just sitting there. And they were talking about how they were scared of, what do you call it? The ventriloquist dummies, right? There's a movie I think about like a horror film about a ventriloquist doll and
Dead Silence.
Magic.
Yeah, Magic.
Right.
Magic is great.
So they're scared of that. And so just later, like in the evening, I bring up that, oh yeah, there used to be these shelves here because the guy that lived here was ventriloquist and he had all his dolls lined up on the shelf. And they said after he died that all the dolls, they moved into the attic space up there. And these guys are like, are you fucking kidding me? Like they freaked out all night that there was like these haunted like ventriloquist dummies in the attic. And of course, years later, I told them that wasn't true.
I was waiting for you to say years later we found a ventriloquist dummy up there.
Oh well, they were killed by a ventriloquist dummy. Yeah. It was. I don't think it was related though. I think it just it was a coincidence.
What about you, Clay? You ever have any either a house with a name or a place that you lived in or some sort of hijinks?
Hijinks with a house? I can't really say that I do. I'm trying to pull a great story out of my ass, but I don't have one. I can make something up. You know what?
Yeah, do that.
Great, I will. No, actually, the only story I can tell about a house, and I may have even told this on the last one, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but I was a huge fan of Psycho and the Psycho movies, and I went to Universal Studios Florida like the week that it opened, and they were shooting Psycho 4 there.
Oh my God.
And it was so it was like a hot set. So like they had the exterior, they had the house, and they had the motel. I think now they've torn down the motel and it's just the house, but they had it all, and it was all like blocked off because it was a hot set. But I hopped over the fence and I ran up to the house, and I was like looking inside the house because I was a big geek, and I got thrown out. I got physically escorted off of the.
How old are you in the story? Like a kid?
I mean, like I'm a teenager, so maybe I don't know, like 14, 15, maybe. Maybe a little older. I don't know.
That's the perfect age to get thrown off a lot. The perfect age.
Yes.
I mean, you're not old enough to like get any real like arrested trouble, but what age were you when you realized, oh, but I'm just a kid doesn't work anymore? Like for me, it was way more recent than it should have been, where I was like, oh, I just realized I'm just an idiot kid is not going to fly. Like that used to fly all the time when I was caught places I shouldn't be. I'm just an idiot kid. And they're like, get out of here, you idiot kid.
But it's funny. What I'm doing is funny, right? But we can't let you.
Nothing illegal, just mischief or whatever. I'm exploring, but like now I'm an adult and they'd be like, you're going to jail. And be like, but I'm just an idiot kid. And they're like, well, you're one of those things. 30.
Now you're an idiot kid in jail.
You're going to be in like your 60s and be like, well, I'm just an idiot kid.
Psycho 4, the beginning.
Clay buried the lead, though. His house currently is built on like Native American burial ground. Is that correct, Clay?
Yeah, it's true. We have poltergeists and all kinds of crazy shit happening. Electromagnetic field. I can't. He doesn't like
to talk. He doesn't like to want to talk about it. But it's.
I get choked up. That's why I can't physically can't speak about it.
That's freaky deaky, man. Man, we might.
I got the Mothman looking over me at night. All
right, let's do this. Let's do this. Think about every horror movie we've seen, every famous monsters we've read. If you could have some freaky, scary shit in your house, what would you want it to be?
You mean like we want it to be there?
Yeah. Like fate tells you your house is going to be haunted or fucked with some paranormal, weird alien type shit, but you get to pick the thing. Which is like not necessarily don't like go by what you think is coolest or most fun to deal with, not like something that would be like beneficial. But like what would be like if I'm gonna get haunted, what am I gonna get haunted? Clay, I heard Rumi first, but Clay's excited, so let me see.
I would like to live in the others, right? So I don't want to spoil anything. But,
I think it's past time where everybody doesn't know what's going on there. If you haven't seen the others yet, get the fuck on. Yeah,
Rosebud was his sled too. Right?
And Vader was
sorry. I can't believe I ruined that for everybody.
Right. So yeah, I think it would be cool to just be able to check out what's going on in the future, right? Because I'd be able to see, like, I'd be Nicole Kidman, right, in this scenario.
Obviously.
Right, of course, stunningly beautiful, and checking out the future.
That's pretty cool. That
sounds rad.
Good answer. Good answer.
Thank you. Survey says
the others.
All right. Is my turn?
Go ahead, Rooms. Do it up. You were excited as well.
Yeah. Because I want a bad Ronald in my house. I want a bad Ronald in my house. Now, we've talked about Bad Ronald before, but Bad Ronald is this kid, through some circumstances, accidentally kills somebody, and his overbearing mother is like, you have to hide in the walls now. So I would love to have like some kid hiding in the walls, and like I think I could train him to do things like, when I take the garbage out for this house secretly and nobody knows it, like I leave chocolate cake out. So like I pretend I didn't know there was a Bad Ronald, but like I'd secretly be training him to do things like watch my house while we're gone, pick up the Amazon packages and bring them inside. And like, it'd be like I basically trained this wall kid to become like a little elf for me. It'd be great.
I have older kids, and so for me, like the thought of there being secretly more kids in my house is actually horrifying.
I mean, if you kept your kids in the walls for a little while, maybe they'd like help out.
Maybe I should. That's a great idea. I'll try that this afternoon. Thanks.
I don't know if you're forgetting or just omitting parts of that story too, Rumi, because he got like crazy obsessed with Dungeons and Dragons and drew shit all over the wall, and then also drew holes in so that he could watch the young daughter change, who he then got obsessed with. So you got to take the good with the bad, my friend. Your Amazon packages will be brought in.
Yeah,
however,
he's skeezing on my daughter. It stands. I'm just kidding. That'd be fucked up. That'd be really fucked up.
I don't have an answer for this, honestly. I think in terms of comedy. So I always had this idea for a sitcom where like the guy's roommate's a ghost, like from the past or something, but he's just this chill ghost. I don't know if someone's already done it. Has that been done before? Has there been like a sitcom where
there was a stoner medium show on like Hulu or something, where this guy, he was like, he'd show up to help ghosts, but he was just stoned out of his mind, and he didn't really want the ability or the gift, so he was always just stoned and like trying to help this ghost. Right. Yeah, I can't remember what it was called. Ghosted, maybe? I don't know.
That's a good title if it's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. I think a comedy ghost I could deal with, because the real ghosts kind of freak me out. I've been on a kick lately watching like a lot of the Mike Flanagan stuff, and I'm going kind of backwards. Like I started with Midnight Mass, or after I think I saw Dr. Sleep, but I didn't know his earlier stuff. So then I watched Hush, and now I'm watching Haunting of Hill House. And I like watching it. I don't think I would want to actually have that going on in my house. That's just too much. And my wife would not put up with it.
Yeah.
Wait, no, and she would not put up with it. Would she be like angry, or would she leave?
Yes,
like
Venezuelans, she would tell the ghost that, no, this is not happening. You must leave the premises. And she probably,
and the ghost would listen.
There'd be a finger wag. And yes, definitely. No. So yeah, that's it.
What about you, Rumi? What do you got?
I want like a haunted toy. Like I want a toy that moves by itself, and I want the build up. Like I want to be like, I want to come home and put some shit down and be like, that belongs over there, and I'll just figure the kid did it, so I'll move it. And then like later on, I'll look over and I'm like, wait, now it's back on the floor, and I know I just put it there. I want that build up. And then slowly but surely we get to the point where I'm standing in front of the fireplace and I'm holding it up, and it turns its head around. You bitch, and starts kicking. Now here's the thing. I have, since I was about 8, I've always thought, how big a threat is Chucky if you know he's Chucky, right? Like my kid he just got measured the other day. He's 35 inches tall and he weighs 25 pounds. If he had a knife and was running at me, I don't see the threat. I really don't. And I think Chucky weighs less than 25 pounds, but let's just give him the heft and say he's 25 pounds, and let's give him the experience with a knife. I still think I have height, I have weight, I have reach on him.
He's got to sneak up on you. He's got to pull. The thing. Yeah, he's got to pull a gauge and sneak up under the bed with the razor blade.
Clay is a child's play expert, are you not? Like,
I am. Yes.
Does Chucky possess like super strength though? Like I have no idea. I don't know.
They've never said that. I mean, it could be true, but they've never made a point of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's why they ask me like, is Chucky like Baby Battis? Like Chucky's like Baby Battis would kill Chucky in literally a second. Like
that's what I would think.
He's
like
Clay, like Captain America strength. Like yeah.
Rumi, your girl's getting big. Dave, your baby is still small. But you'll see, there's times where you're holding them and they decide, I don't want this. Yeah. And you're like, but I'm like a middle-aged man and it's hard for me to just with me as I gently lower you to the ground. And they will be like, no. And they wiggle like crazy. I still think if my kid had a knife in that situation, I could not get cut. I think I could stop that.
I could stop the knife. I can't stop the headbutt to the nose. That's the one that gets me every time. My kid gets all like, she gets all silly, and then she arches her back all the way back and then goes, whoop-pow, and got me straight in the face. And I was like,
see, Kent kicks, so it's not an upper area problem.
Yeah, I got
people love
wear a cup, Matt.
People love this dad stuff. I'm telling you, it always comes back to the dad stuff.
Well, have you guys, I mean, I'm just going to keep rolling with this because it's interesting to me. Have you guys, any of you ever experienced something that you can't explain? House related or no?
So I always love to go on like creepy walks, right? So like when my wife and I went to London, we did the Jack the Ripper tour where we, had a guide take us around to all the sites. We did that in Savannah. We did a ghost tour. where we were kind of taken around. And so when we were living in the Atlanta area, we went out to meet with some ghost hunters as they were exploring this like haunted library. And so we all got these like EMF readers, right, that would make all this crackling sounds, you know, sure. Like tracking the ghosts. And for some reason, anytime my wife got near these machines, they would go off like crazy. And the ghost hunters were like, oh, well, you know, one of the ghosts is like super attracted to you and like just wants to be by your side. I think maybe like you remind them of their mother or something. And so they were like, you know, we just have to be careful that it doesn't follow you home.
Nice.
And she was so totally freaked out by this, like, because like literally anytime she got close to it, it just went insane. And so I remember like we were driving home that night and she was just so totally freaked out, being like, did this ghost follow me home? Did this ghost follow me home? And I'm like, I think you're okay. I think you're okay.
But did you check?
I'm here to protect you. Well, we had to turn in the EMF readers.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, I'm dead. We're all dead. I'm having
what if she was dead? What if she was a ghost? I hate to even joke about this, but also think about it. What if she's your Bruce Willis?
A great story.
I love the idea of like you turn in these like machines and you're like, how do I know? And they're like, well, when you get home, it's kind of like ants. Just put like a bowl of water outside the door and it'll like draw the ghost away from her.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
Some great ideas for scripts, guys.
Yeah, right. We went ghost hunting in Salem when we were in college.
Oh, wow.
And we went to the most haunted hotel in America.
Whoa. And
it was me and a bunch of friends, and he was doing it for a class project to see. He got all the equipment, he rented it, a bunch of audio equipment, video equipment, and I spent most of the night doing things to make people be like, oh my God, are you seeing this? Ah! So like I'd run down the hallway and just hit every chandelier that I could and be all swinging so somebody else would come off the elevator and be like, ah, it's happening. And like, and so I did that most of the night. But then we were in this room and we had the audio recorders and we were doing if you are here right now, speak to us, blah, 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 blah. Well, not a lot of like stuff popped up that night, but we went back and he's going through all the footage and we're in the ballroom and we're going through the audio recording and somebody says, if you're here, speak to us. And clear as day, a voice goes, ballroom dancing. And we were like, what the fuck? Oh, wow. Like, wow, that's amazing. His professor was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would that ghost say anything more substantial? Ballroom dancing. That wasn't even an answer to the question. It's like, we got a disembodied voice and you're giving him an F because it doesn't say what you want it to say. What if he was like Pikachu and you were like, what? Like it still happened. You didn't like, it's not like we can't control what the ghost says on the interview. I'm sorry. It was offensive that he claimed to be ballroom dancing or whatever he was doing, but it was like, and that was the only thing we got that night. But
I like to think that ghost specifically said ballroom dancing because that phrase had specific meaning to that teacher. And the ghost knew you were bringing it back to that teacher. And that teacher then went and hung himself because of some tragic
he was like,
murder that he was a part of 20 years ago, right? He was the
murderer in the ball. Like, yes.
This is all for volume 3, by the way. I hope you guys are taking notes.
You guys
We've already got a story like that, so I gotta turn that down.
To be fair, there is nothing scarier than ballroom dancing.
I mean, yeah.
True story. Yeah.
Especially with Aaron.
Yeah.
I took cotillion. Woof.
Well, Sway, then I guess let's swinging it back to Nightmare Theater. Without giving away anything you guys don't want to give away, what are some of your favorite points or favorite stories or favorite illustrations or favorite lines? Give us some favorites from Volume 2.
That's a great question. I mean, it's so tough to pick a favorite because we really, we really like have so much quality in this book. There's a cool story from a guy named Terry Cronin that is, it's called Worm Cheese. And I don't want to give anything away, but it's sort of like, it's a creepy culinary delight, we'll say. And it just has some super creepy illustrations. And that was a story that really struck me. And then there's another, Will Allred is a writer who does a book called Crossover Division, and he's got a story with Mick Byers on art that is well, actually, I can't tell you the name because the name is a spoiler. So title redacted, we shall say, but it's a tale of gamesmanship taken to the brink. And I think a lot of people are going to dig that one. It's
you're
got
good
some cool
at teasing,
art.
Clay.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Lots
see
of
why
practice.
those ghosts. I see those ghosts are on board.
Yes.
You can see why the ghosts love them. They're very attracted to them.
That's because I look like Nicole Kidman. That's
and your wife is Bruce Willis. Got it.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Monster makeup is a kind of a cool story too. I think that's from Kat, Clay.
Yeah, Kat Kalamia, and the artist whose name I'm going to slaughter, Keenan Halilovic.
Yeah,
he's the artist on a webtoon called Witch Creek Road, and they did a little story about a stalker obsessed with a Hollywood starlet. But let's just say she's full of surprises.
Man, you are tease. You're good at this.
And
you got to work for Netflix.
Richard Fairgray has another story, and he's always like kind of offbeat, funny stuff. Like his story in the first volume, I always described as that like David Sedaris horror. But we need every kind of type of cinematic horror, and so there's a little bit of comedy. Robert is it Kirsch? His story with the Turner Family Terrors.
Yeah, Turner Family Terrors. Yeah,
that's pretty cool too. There's very little comedy, but there's a few things here and there that kind of like, you ebb and flow a little bit.
You want to balance it out a little bit, right? Like some of the real horrifying stuff, and then you also want to have some stuff that's just like a little bit on the lighter side. And sure. Richard is so good at that. Yeah.
Well, if you look on the Kickstarter page, there's so many things that I love. That's just the vibe, all the different types of art styles. I mean, from the straight up cartoony style to hyper realistic, like almost painting like very, everything's really cool. And I love that variety when you can get an anthology that isn't afraid to have that level of variety. That's super fun because, even Tales from the Crypt was basically always looked the same. It had a consistency to it, but this, it can take you on a full journey in a couple different stories, which is
and we're
awesome.
Trying to be consistent with obviously the hostess and those pages like that kind of like bookend the book, but the variety inside kind of mimics what you would get at a film festival, and that's the whole thing. It's like cinematic horror inspired comics and, from the different genres and subgenres. And that's fun. That's fun to curate. I think that's part of the fun of it.
And that to me, like if you're going to do an anthology, right? I feel like what's the point if it all looks the same, right? Like we really did want to have that variety, even down to like the lettering. Like a few of the writers were asking us like, well, is there like going to be one letterer for the whole book? And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. Like as long as it's professionally lettered and it looks good, like a book you'd pick up at the comic shop, it doesn't. I think we want to see those different styles, different art styles, different coloring styles, different lettering styles. It's not about making it samey and cohesive. Like Dave said, it is sort of like a film festival. Yeah, there's going to be a thematic through line, but we really want to just have as much variety as possible.
I love the idea of sort of a horror film festival, and the more I think about it, the more it'd be fun to see some of these as horror shorts because they are all very cinematic.
What about a launch pad podcast film festival?
I want to do one so bad.
Oh yeah. It's on a list.
A horror film festival. Start now. Start small.
Yeah.
And this thing will grow.
It is so on our list because the hard thing is, I'm in Georgia, Matt's in LA, so we have to find where to do it and then where to start. But I would love to do that and just like riffing off of kind of what you guys are doing, but like have a horror host, but have several horror hosts. Have like one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. Get a couple hosts in there to have some fun with it because that's always super cool. Something I wanted to bring up because you started with it and one of your variant covers deals with this is H.P. Lovecraft and Cthulhu. I wanted to talk briefly, like, do you guys have a favorite H.P. Lovecraft property? Because I know it's one of the hardest realized sort of authors. Some has been done well. Obviously, the Stuart Gordon's Reanimator is great. What a great horror movie. But is it H.P. Lovecraft faithful? People have argued that for a while. So I want to open that up. What do you guys think is a good H.P. Lovecraft property that's been made?
So I love Reanimator, and I only saw it for the first time fairly recently, within the last year. Yeah, but I loved it.
Right?
Yeah, it's so good, and I feel like it's kind of like what I was saying before about Beyond the Wall of Sleep, our adaptation in the book, is that I think with a lot of these things, you have to sort of take some of the ideas and the basic ideas and translate them in like a cinematic way or a comic booky way. Because I don't know that doing a straight adaptation to comic books or to movies would really work, because so much of Lovecraft is like about the language and the building of the tension and this and that and things that might not necessarily work on a comic book page or on a screen. But that if you can take some of those ideas and translate them, then I think like, man, you're really cooking. And Stuart Gordon I thought nailed it. Yeah. I
mean, you're so right there. One of my favorite, it's not an H.P. Lovecraft one, but it's very Lovecraftian. And this is Clive Barker's Midnight Meat Train in the book. Ooh. It has this moment where it's like, and I saw it gray as the night, as big as a mountain that breathed. And I was just like, man, and his description of this creature in the depths of the sewers of New York was so good and so Lovecraftian, of something that you see it and you go insane. And then the movie came out. I was so pumped, and the movie was so good. And it gets to the moment of the Lovecraftian horror, the eldritch god in the basement in the sewers of New York, and they didn't even attempt it. They didn't even show it. They just left it at rat monsters or whatever. And I was like, I felt so robbed. It's like, you're not even going to try. Yeah. And I get it. What a hard thing to show. But if you don't show it, I judge you less. If you show it badly, I judge you. But so it's like, you have to find that fine line. And it's so hard with something that you see it and go insane. Like, how do you do that?
How do you translate that to screen? Because like you said, anything you try to do is going to be a disappointment, because it's not going to live up to those words that Lovecraft wrote, right. And that's what he was such a genius at, was painting those pictures, leaving those things just like vague enough that you could imagine them. And that terror was more than maybe if you saw it on the screen. But yeah, if you're looking for an adaptation and then they just dodge that moment, absolutely, you're gonna feel robbed.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's hard to say. I think The Mist, as far as like Lovecraftian creatures, the Frank Darabont's The Mist had some great that sort of vein of something in the mist that you can't see, and the hints you get are like, oh no, I don't want to tussle. No, thank you.
Right. There's something very Hitchcockian about that. That's sort of like the building up of the tension and what you don't see. Yeah.
Dave, what about you? Do you have a favorite Cthulhu or H.P. Lovecraft sort of?
I'm not going to pretend like I am not a huge Lovecraft reader fan. So Clay's kind of the expert there. I've dabbled on the fringes of it, like, reading a little bit here, a little bit there, people's stories, reading about Lovecraft. I watched Lovecraft Country. I thought that was a really cool series. Yeah. But like, by no means have I read Lovecraft. Like, I just haven't ever gone there. I don't know why that is. I was busy reading other stuff, I think, at the time.
Hey, it's also,
I heard he's kind of an asshole. So
he's a total,
so I was like, okay, maybe I didn't invest too much time. It's kind of like, I'm a Clippers fan, and Donald Sterling was like the owner for so long. I was like, oh, this fucking guy, I can't believe, I love this team, but I hate the owner. So
it's not an easy jump in. It's certainly, there is no easy entry point. It's all difficult. And yes, if you're doing your research first before you dive in, you're like, this guy's a jackass. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there's no getting around it, but he wrote some good horror.
Well, it's funny because, I'm doing this Carmilla story, and, this is something that me and Clay talked about originally we were going to do as a book, and we still are going to do it as a book. But we wanted to kind of put it into this anthology. Yeah. And I didn't know a whole lot about Carmilla, so I had to do like a deep dive into like all the other adaptations that are out there, reading the actual story. It's a pretty short novella, but it's been great. Like, I kind of like the research phase. So when I kind of sign on to do something, I want to kind of get to know it and kind of immerse myself in it. And I think we have a fun way of kind of reintroducing her and doing something different than what other people have done. So yeah, I mean, I think at some point I'll read more Lovecraft, but especially with all the free time I have now with
yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, before we keep talking, I wanted to bring this up for any of our listeners who don't know. This might pique their interest. Carmilla is one of the earliest fictionalized vampires, and it predates Dracula
by like 26 years earlier.
Wild.
And, Clay has mentioned like lesbian vampires. It's like, this sounds like something that would sell still to this day. So we are going to do our spin on it and, have a twist involved, but it's pretty cool. Like, it's been fun to kind of dive into it and see what we can do that's different because, again, I didn't know how much it had been covered until later. So yeah, we want to make sure that we're, bringing something different to the table.
There's always something new you can do though with these characters. That's what's so great about them. Right. That's why they've lasted.
Right.
100%. I mean, fear as an archetype, when you look to creatures like vampires, like Cthulhu, something that is bigger than history itself. There's all these archetypes in horror that you can keep coming back to. And if you find a way to present it that's fresh, and I think, a comic book is a great way to do that, because I think films, you get almost too many people involved and then too much money involved, and then people need to kind of clamp down on the wild creativity. But with a comic book, you can do whatever you want. And if it doesn't land, if your take on this vampire story or your take on H.P. Lovecraft doesn't land, well, there will be another comic book and you can try again. There's no limit in comic books to how many times you can swing for the fences. And I think movies, if you don't nail it and you don't make the money back, then nobody's going to give you another chance at your Camilla story, So I love that comic books are such a great place for horror to explore.
And that's part of what is kind of cool about this anthology is that, there are plenty of properties inside Nightmare Theater that we know that the creators want to take and do something else with, we were always adamant that if you're going to put a story in Nightmare Theater, it has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It can't just be like a teaser for your upcoming series or whatever. And then somebody feels like they got to go buy it or whatever. But that if that thing goes on to become a hit, they can always look back and say, well, the very first appearance was in Nightmare Theater. And I think that's just to get back around to what you just said is that, like, yeah, it is a launch pad, if you will, for a few of these properties. And I think it's just a cool way to do it. Just we can tell a story, we can see what resonates, we can see what works. And then if it goes on to become something else, great.
That's awesome. Super fun.
And getting back to what you're saying about like not seeing it, the horror, the fear, there's some of that in the actual original novella, Carmilla. It's like what you're not showing. I mean, obviously they're doing a lot of telling, but they're still kind of just on the edges of what this could be. Jaws is a good example of that too. I think, Spielberg said that he wouldn't even show the shark if he went back. And that tension and that fear is to me, what's scarier than actually showing, something jumping out at you or showing the blood. Now, having said that, sometimes even in comics, you need to bring the goods. And I think we'll have some of that in the story as far as actually, you want to see the teeth sink into someone's flesh. So we'll have some of that.
Excellent. Well, let people know where they can pitch the Kickstarter. Tell us about where they can go to get in on Nightmare Theater 2, and what are some of the sort of the incentives to hop on board for this awesome anthology?
Well, the incentive is you're going to get a freaking great book. Amazing book. So you can go to kickstarter.com. You can look us up. It's Nightmare Theater 2. You can also, the short link is bit.ly/Nightmare Theater 2. I think that's a capital N and a capital T. And we got a bunch of different covers. We've got that Emanuele Taglietti Carmilla cover.
There's a new tier with the poster. We did like an Italian movie style poster for that story with his cover. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the Italian job tier.
Right.
There's got the naked version of that too, right?
There is indeed.
Cover your eyes, kids. There is.
We like boobs here on the launch pads, so don't leave that out.
Oh, you're gonna love that cover then. Yeah, that's sort of what he's known for, Taglietti. Like he's an Italian fumetti artist, and he's the retrospective of his work is called Sex and Horror. So you can imagine what he specializes in. So we actually the original art came with the ladies naked, and we actually had to pay more to put clothes on them. So
ransom,
which is you can just like real life.
Exactly. So you can get both covers there. We've got the aforementioned Brian Silverback's Cthulhu Dreams cover.
Michael
cosplay.
The cosplay with Sarah's cover. Michael Calero did the Swamp Thing homage cover. And what are we leaving out, Clay?
Alex Cormack's Date Night cover, which you can get as a trade paperback or a hardcover.
That's the hardcover. Yeah, we did introduce that.
Awesome. I mean, guys, hit this up. Get in on board. How many days are left currently? This is recording Sunday the 21st. So where are you at in your campaign right now?
11 days left right now.
Okay.
Time is running out.
Time is running out. That's right.
So this will air on Wednesday. So 11 days today. 8 days, guys. Come on, 8 days. Get on.
Yeah, they know their math here at the launch.
Oh, I do not know my math. You guys were lucky. That was a rare moment of math.
11
aptitude.
minus 3 is 8, right?
I don't always math, but
so far
it's wrong.
actually, these days I'm not sure. I don't know. Like you could probably argue that it's not.
I don't even know what day of the week it is anymore. So
what is truth really? What is it?
Who knows?
Now we're getting deep.
I was trying to figure out how to schedule a time with you guys, and I'm in Georgia, and you guys are on the West Coast. So I'm like three.
Clay is in the middle of the country, I believe. I'm on the West.
I'm in Northwest Arkansas, or NWA as they like to call it here. Which,
they do say that.
Which is pretty hip.
Rumi, you lately have been doing like Rumi's in Georgia, I'm in California. Rumi's been doing stuff like, all right, so let's meet at like 11:30 your time and like 14 o'clock my time. And I'm like, wait, what? It's like 11:30 your time, which is about 7 o'clock my time. And I'm like, wait, what time zone are you in? And there's times where one of us is looking for the other person, like, where are you? And you're like, what do you mean? We have an hour. You're like, no, you said 11 o'clock. Oh, I guess I meant 12 o'clock because I can't count.
Oh my God.
Those are like Abbott and Costello outtakes.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but they're not funny. It's just aggravating.
Just aggravating.
Well, that's why they're outtakes, because it was funny.
It was just aggravating. Yeah.
So funny. I think I'm really excited about this. Nightmare Theater 1 was awesome, and I think 2, lining up to be just as good. Where can people follow you guys? What's the best way to follow Clay and David?
So I'm on Twitter at Clay's Evil Twin. So give me a follow and enjoy my feed, as the kids say.
I am at Schraderopolis on Twitter and Instagram. And also The Baby Badass. That's still a property that is hanging around. May see the return of Baby Badass next year.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, Schraderopolis or the Baby Badass Twitter and Instagram.
And guys, as usual, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Launchpad Pod, and our website, launchpadpod.com. Check us out on YouTube. Quadruple the handsome faces today. See everybody saying funny things, talking it up. We really appreciate everybody who checks out our stuff. Hit like, hit subscribe, and like I said, tell your friends about us. Download us for that airplane ride as you travel through the holiday season. Travel safe, guys. Until next time. Oh, wait. Pat, we need to do a quadruple blast off. What am I thinking?
Slow down here.
Slow my roll.
We even planted the seeds earlier this episode.
So we have the secret handshake, which Dave, you have done many a time. Clay,
yes, I'm almost a 5-timer if you missed the first part of the show.
Right. So
Clay must have done it last time we were here.
I think he must have. So we come in sideways for the refresher. It's like a high five, and then we rotate our hands into the rocket ship and then blast off with a raspberry. So on the count of 3, we will do this. So 1, 2.
Me in the middle?
Yeah, yep. me in the middle of your frame. It'll look real weird, but it'll work. All right, 3,
all right.
2, 1. Whoopsh.
Whoopsh. Perfect. It was
It was awesome.
Synchronized. It's totally synchronized.
So perfect.
It was
I got chills, guys.
the one in the Clint Howard movie wasn't half that good.
No, this is
Now
this
I
has
have
been
to
amazing.
see this Clint Howard. Do you know where that's streaming?
It might be on Tubi. You're going to be disappointed.
Okay,
But don't get.
all right.
I just watched another movie called The Ice Cream Man last night that I turned off 25 minutes in because
Wait, there's two The Ice Cream Man movies?
and neither of them are funny
None of them
or
are good.
interesting. The Clint Howard one is okay, but that's one of those ones I've never been drunk, but it's one of those ones that you probably are better drunk or high watching with a group of people. By yourself, it's like there's so many missed opportunities. It's not good and it's not bad. It's just like bleh.
And it's not funny, and it's not. It's just.
And poor Clint Howard thinks it's real, you know?
If I don't do this, who's going to deliver the kids their ice cream? Yeah, he's being a weirdo the whole time. Well, guys, this has been the Launchpad Podcast. We're the Rocketeers. We are out.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.